In this year of 721 BC, planet Phoenix passed through the inner solar system. It last entered the inner solar system in 859 BC, and the Assyrians were expecting it, representing it as the winged disk. 138 years before that was 997 BC, and the event was recorded by David as the appearance of the angel of death. 138 years before that, in 1135 BC, it darkened the sun and brought in the height of the Dark Age. And 138 years prior to that was 1273 BC, the first year of the Assyrian Empire. Now, in 721 BC, we arrive at the 32nd year of King Romulus of Rome, paralleling the 32nd year of Nimrod in 1915 BC, when Nibiru appeared, who was known as Sargon the Great. Augustine cites Marcus Varro as relating that toward the latter reign of Rome's first king Romulus, the sun darkened. Augustine wrote that this eclipse of the sun was like the one that occurred when Christ was crucified. He wrote, quote, "For it is sufficiently demonstrated that this latter obscuration of the sun did not occur by the natural laws of the heavenly bodies, because it was then the Jewish Passover." Unquote. Here it is admitted that the sun darkened, not by the moon, but by some unknown body. Augustine wrote that the ancient chroniclers spoke not only of the sun darkening, but also of a sudden storm. Both Phoenix and Assyria are linked by these three dates: 1273 BC, 859 BC, and 721 BC, a 552 years period. This dreadful year for Israel was 408 years, or 2448 plus 2448 months, after 1129 BC, when Assyria conquered Babylon, and 240 years, 86,400 days, after 961 BC, when the Neo-Assyrian Empire began. This reflects the fact that in this year, the 24th, the Assyrian deportation plan was completed, or 8640 days, 24 times 360. This deportation was by the design of God. From the beginning, the tribes of Israel were to become nations of the earth and empires as they steadily multiplied and filled the world with their progeny. God told Jacob, Israel, quote, "A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins." Unquote. Genesis. Genesis reads that Israel's seed, quote, "shall become a multitude of nations," unquote, "and thy seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and thou shalt spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest." Unquote. Isaiah the prophet wrote that the outcasts of Israel would be spread across the face of the earth, as also the, quote, "dispersed of Judah," unquote, Isaiah. This admits that the Israelites were a distinctive group from Judah in their separation and wanderings. He further wrote that Israel would be far away in the north, the west, and as far as Sinim, far east. They will, quote, "be scattered far unto all the ends of the earth," unquote, and that in this way, quote, "increaseth the nation," unquote, Isaiah. Quote, "He shall cause them that come of Jacob to take root. Israel shall blossom and bud, and fill the face of the world with fruit," unquote. Jeremiah the prophet wrote that Israel shall come out of the north. Zechariah wrote that Israel shall increase, quote, "and I will sow them among the people, and they shall remember me in far countries," unquote. Micah the prophet wrote that, quote, "the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people, like a lion among beasts of the forest," unquote. Amos. The psalmist wrote that Israel was to receive, quote, "the uttermost part of the earth for a possession," unquote, which is indeed what occurred with the burst of the United States of America and the western expansion of the USA from the Atlantic to the Pacific, the coast of California being the farthest west anyone can travel in the lower 48. In the Gospel of John, we see that the children of Israel were, quote, "scattered abroad," unquote. In the days of Paul the Apostle, Israel was considered a commonwealth, Ephesians, and the author James began his New Testament book, quote, James, the servant of God and the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting, unquote. Under the date 745 BC, we saw the biblical passages that declared that Israel would take to the seas and settle the coasts of the earth. Now we find that Israel will also spread across the world by land as well. Not one of these prophecies concerns sailing or seas, but are, in a broader sense, simply mentioning that Israel will fill the earth with people. Thus far, this has already been occurring. Over 680 years ago, the Danites departed. Then successive waves of Danites, Gadites, and the men of Zebulun departed Israel in fleets, and became the Ionian and Danaan Greeks, even making it to ancient Ireland. Already there were Aegean and Mediterranean cultures descended from Israel, who had forgotten who they were. The prophecies concerning Israel forgetting their identity will be addressed later in this chronology. 1. Tracing our ancestors. 2. Kings. 4. Jeremiah. 5. Antiquities. Josephus. 6. Post-captivity names of Israel. 7. Philosopher and the Druid. 8. A short history of the world. 10. Flying serpents and dragons. 11. The cosmic code. Hidden codes, mystic numbers, Sitchin. 12. Augustine, City of God, Book 3. 720 BC, 3175 AM. It is noted by historians that beginning in and about 720 BC, on through 680 BC, those peoples we know as the Greeks were galvanized into a body of social unity. This unification over a 40-year period beginning about 720 BC was no doubt behind the popularity of the games of Zeus and the meeting of many peoples from scattered parts at the event every 4 years. In this year the Olympics became an all-nude competition, many believing this started with a runner named Orsippos of Megara, who won a foot race naked. This change was astounding to foreigners who were shocked that aristocrats would remove their status symbols, robes, crowns, bracelets, torques, and compete side by side with social inferiors. 1. The origin of Greek civilization. 2. The Naked Olympics. 718 BC, 3177 AM. This is the Annus Mundi year provided by Geraldus Cambrensis for the flooding of the Lough in the reign of Deheubarth Llanbrwyn of ancient Ireland, a king. Cambrensis wrote that many of the ancient towers were submerged beneath the lake. The towers throughout Ireland are a source of mystery, many believing that the Tuatha de Danann erected them. They are masterworks of masonry with odd acoustical properties. This date is most likely 5 years off the true date of 713 BC, when a major global disaster took place. 716 BC, 3179 AM. The kingship of Rome passes from Romulus to King Numa Pompilius, whose reign would endure 43 years. He was renowned for justice, Livy relating that Numa was deeply reverent, a virtual scholar and learned in all the laws of God and man, 1 Livy.